Now that I've created my signature file, I want to show you how I would perform a maximum likelihood classification. And just as a reminder, I created my signatures using the Create Signatures tool in the Spatial Analyst tool set inside the ARC toolbox. And so to perform the maximum likelihood classification, I would open the maximum likelihood classification tool in that same multivariate tool set inside of the Spatial Analyst toolbox. And I would input my raster bands, and again, that's my composite, my 6-channel composite that we're going to use to do the classification. And then I'll input my signature file, and my signature file is the signature file that I created just recently with the Make Signatures tool. And you can see it will direct by default to the default geodatabase that is in my my documents folder. If you want to direct it somewhere else, you can do so by simply sending it here. I could send it to my project, my activity folder. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. MLC Act 1, or I'm sorry, Act 3. So I'm going to do that. Again, I would probably make this 13 characters or less. This is a kind of a legacy thing that we're carrying with us, but make it 13 characters or less. And I'm saving to the folder in my activity folder. And so I save that. And so you can see now it's going to my activity folder here on the desktop, on my desktop. And I'm just going to leave these other categories in their default location. You can create a confidence raster. This is somewhat interesting, and if you want to do a little research on that, you'll see that it gives you a probability value, pixel by pixel probability for each confidence probability for each raster cell, each pixel in the image, which is somewhat interesting. I'm not going to do that here. We're not going to do that in this classification. But when we've gotten to this point, we're ready to go, and I'll go ahead and set this off and let it run. And then I'm going to step away for a second. Okay, so the classification has completed and the classified file has been opened into our project. You can see that we have a number of different classes here, and they're labeled by our class names that we used in our training sample selection and in our signature file that we created. These are shortened versions of the class names. I would recommend, there's a number of things that you need to do here. I would recommend going through and selecting new colors for this that reflect maybe some similarities between some of these classes. So for instance, housing quite often is shown as a purple class, or a pinkish or purple. And so, we typically group these things together into these more standard colors that are used in land cover classification. And we'll discuss this in class again. This is something that's done more for simplifying your classification, but it also things start to make sense. So you start to look at, as you look at this classification, you're looking at low density residential, medium density residential, and high density residential. And if you've selected your categories carefully, you can see that it starts to reflect the way that we understand the distribution and the geography of housing in the Chicago area. And so, go through and select these, and so you probably group together the two industry classifications. And again, this is made relatively simple by by using the table of contents. And so light industry and heavy industry, I'm going to make a darker kind of turquoise there. I think that was the area that I was in. Light and heavy industry. Probably could speed things up by turning these off so that we're just drawing our composite and our classification, right? And then there's a number of other class things that you might do here. Again, this makes it a little more maybe easier to interpret, a little more appealing to the eye, you might say, and easier to use. So this is ultimately what you're targeting, is making this easier for the user to use and to understand. And so you wind up with a visualization that's that looks like a very strong visualization, and it was very professionally done. And then I'm going to go here with a brown sequence for the ag categories, and you'll see if you're careful selecting these categories, you're going to be somewhat surprised at the amount of information, certainly that's contained in these, but also at the ability of the system to classify these on a pixel by pixel basis, these categories into a very interesting and useful visualization here.